the United States is carrying a significant amount of debt, currently standing at $27.2 trillion. But who would be willing to lend such a massive sum of money to the U.S.? Who exactly does the U.S. owe this debt to? Well, the answer is quite straightforward. While a large portion of the debt is owed to itself, there are also several other countries involved. Essentially, the U.S. owes money to two main groups: the general public, which includes other countries and investors in the U.S., and itself. But before we delve into the composition of these groups and the percentages, let's cover some basics. When the U.S. government needs funds, it raises money by issuing savings bonds or treasury bonds. These bonds are essentially IOUs that promise to pay back the buyer, along with some interest. Many individuals and entities, such as banks, foreign governments, and even you, may be interested in purchasing these bonds because they are considered solid investments. The debt ceiling, which you might have heard of, sets a limit on the amount of bonds the U.S. Treasury can issue. Congress may raise this ceiling to finance government spending through the sale of more Treasury bonds. Now that we have a grasp of how the government is funded, let's address who actually holds these bonds. Contrary to popular belief, it's not solely our enemies or some secretive, powerful group. Foreign governments and investors only own about 30% of the total U.S. debt, while the remaining 70% is held by U.S. investors, the Federal Reserve, or even the U.S. government itself. U.S. investors, including banks, institutions, and regular individuals, own around 33% of the total debt. The Federal Reserve, the privatized central bank of the U.S., holds approximately 12% of the total debt. Surprisingly, the U.S. government itself owns roughly 27% of the total debt. This includes agencies like Social Security, Medicare, and disability insurance, which purchase debt from the U.S. Treasury and utilize the interest payments to fund their programs. While it may seem peculiar, governments that have the ability to print their own currency can indeed loan money to themselves. The remaining 28% to 30% of the debt is owned by foreign investors, with the largest holders being China and Japan. However, countries like Brazil, Ireland, and the UK are also significant purchasers of U.S. Treasuries. Investing in U.S. Treasury bonds allows these countries to manage the value of their currencies relative to the U.S. dollar, which can have benefits for trade and monetary policies. So, who does the U.S. owe money to? Primarily its own citizens, companies, and even itself. However, approximately 1/3 of the overall debt is owed to other countries. Will the U.S. ever be able to pay off this debt? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below.